The Florida Historical Society presents Florida Frontiers is made possible in part by the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund and by
Florida's Space Coast Office of Tourism, representing destinations from Titusville to Cocoa Beach to Melbourne Beach. The Space Coast has a diverse 72 miles of beach, including surf towns and sea turtle nests. We have inspiring attractions, including the Kennedy Space Center, Brevard Museum of History and Natural Science, and the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. More information is available at www.visitspacecoast.com.
and by the Department of State Division of Cultural Affairs, the Florida Council of Arts and Culture, and the state of Florida. Florida history and culture from the Ice Age to the Space Age is on display at the Brevard Museum of History and Natural Science, located at 2201 Michigan Avenue in Cocoa. The museum has nature trails through 20 acres of 3 Florida ecosystems. The People of Windover exhibition features information about Florida's prehistoric past and actual artifacts used between 7,000 and 8,000 years ago. More information at brevardmuseum.org. The Florida Historical Society Press publishes books on a variety of topics relating to our state's diverse history and culture. FHS Press titles include Life and Death at Windover, excavations of a 7,000-year-old pond cemetery, The Voyages of Ponce de Leon, scholarly perspectives, Hollow Victory, a novel of the Second Seminole War, Stetson Kennedy's Palmetto Country, and Walk in Lawton. More information at fhspress.org.
Does your script call for rear screen projection? Shoot it on our process stage here. Our studio has the only complete modern rear screen process facility in the southeast United States. Still pictures are important to your production too. Shoot them on our portrait stage, your still man or ours. Nowhere are there finer editing facilities. And here in our modern projection room, you can view the results of your filming in standard ratio or anamorphic, and in any millimeter. Shirley Eaton, the Goldfinger girl who co-stars in Around the World Under the Sea, found our crews warm and responsive, and vice versa. Another booster of ours is Lloyd Bridges, also a star of Around the World Under the Sea. Now, this is nice work if you can get it. And Ivan Tors has it. Florida filming is always unique, as you can see as Tors prepares personally to supervise an underwater scene for one of his productions.
Welcome to Florida Frontiers, presented by the Florida Historical Society. I'm Ben Brotemarkle. Hundreds of filmmakers have followed their dreams to Florida. The movie Follow That Dream, shot entirely in the Sunshine State, is arguably Elvis Presley's best. The film Rosewood tells the true story of the destruction of a Florida town in 1923. The Cecil B. DeMille classic, The Greatest Show on Earth, takes us to the home of the circus in Sarasota. These and many other films are part of the history of film in Florida that goes all the way back to the silent era.
Jacksonville, Florida was a hub for filmmaking as an alternative to the cold climates of up north, of New York and New Jersey and even Chicago were all hubs of filmmaking at the very beginning. But of course it's limited there once the cold starts and once the snow starts. So people began to look for other places where they could extend the shooting season, and Florida was a natural location. And Jacksonville became a kind of hub. First, companies like Lubim and Kalem ended up in Florida like in 1908, 1909, and then once they went back up north and spread the good news about the weather and the virgin landscape, and they were, you know, the exotic trees and shrubbery and how nice the people were, they other companies followed suit. So from around 1908, 1909 to 1916 or so, Jacksonville could have been Hollywood.
Jacksonville initially was quite welcoming toward the early film industry. And in fact, the mayor there provided a lot of economic incentives for the film industry to set up in Jacksonville. Now, in about 1917, the mayor had a reform candidate running against him, and the reform candidate had pledged to do something about the disruption that the film industry was causing in the streets of Jacksonville. Because, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of disruption that a film company causes in the normal day-to-day in any town. And also the sensibilities of some citizens were offended because the film companies would sometimes stage scenes in public on Sundays, and that didn't go over well. The reform candidate did win, and so therefore Jacksonville suddenly was not so friendly to the early film industry.
So along comes John W. Martin. He was a mayor, he ran against Jet Bowden, and part of his whole platform was cleaning up Jacksonville from the debauchery of the film industry, and he won. And so there's a lot of debate as to if that was kind of the pivotal moment of the industry leaving Jacksonville. If Mayor Bowden had won again, could we still be Hollywood? Who knows? Maybe so, maybe not. There's a lot of back and forth on, do we really want to, would we really have wanted to be LA? The point is that that was a pivotal moment in Jacksonville's losing the industry. A lot of it, by the way, came down to one particular scene that was shot over in Springfield. It was a bar fight scene, and it just got completely out of hand. A storefront was destroyed. From what we understand, just some ne'er-do-well kids came by and thought it looked fun, and so they joined in, and all of a sudden there were real punches and real bottles and real sticks being used, and it wasn't the actor. So it really just got totally out of hand. It was the front page of the newspaper the next morning, and it was kind of the final "I told you so" for John W. Martin. He won, and the industry headed westward.
After World War I and after the industry moves from Jacksonville to Hollywood, there's still filmmaking done in Florida, and there was always a desire to bring it back as big as it had been in Jacksonville. There were a couple of studios that remained behind, including the Race Film Studio, which was based in Jacksonville, and it's called Norman Studios, and it made films starring African-American actors for African-American audiences, and some of the people behind the camera were African-American. It was owned by Richard Norman, who was a white man, but he entered the race movie business.
This piece of property is so important, not only to Florida's history, but also to the history of filmmaking, the film industry as a whole. There's a lot of people who have no idea about Jacksonville's short but bright spot in this history, but it's also very important to civil rights history, because we're standing on the ground where African American, some of the earliest African American actors and filmmakers were able to get their start.
It did provide an opportunity for early black actors to perform in heroic leading roles, and it was a non-stereotypical kind of role.
What we plan for the future of this property is to turn it into a world-class film learning and research and tourism center, where people from all over the world that are interested in the history of film, will come here. We want to be able to run workshops for up-and-coming filmmakers to kind of bring it full circle back to what it was originally, which was an independent filmmaking center, and maybe hold summer camps for young kids who want to learn about film.
In the 1920s, stage actor Paul Gilmore tried to create a major production facility in Florida on Anna Maria Island called Oriental Film City. Although he did make one film there called Isle of Destiny, distribution problems and the real estate bust killed Gilmore's dream. Also in the 1920s, an attempt was made to establish a self-sustained town to support filmmaking in Florida, located between Tampa and Sarasota. Founder Ernest Shipman called the community Sun City.
And the thing that is so interesting to me about Sun City is that he actually had the community planned with all of its streets. So he had the town and its streets mapped out, and all of the streets were named after famous movie stars of the period, famous directors, and other Hollywood studios. that was the first thing that was done, was to map out the city and name those streets. And of course his idea would be that once the people in Hollywood would hear of this, that they would be flattered and they would want to come east and maybe, if not live here, I'm sure you couldn't convince Mary Pickford to leave Pickfair to live in Sun City, but she might come here and make a film. And that was, good promotion on his part. And they actually got the studio built. It was going to be a self-sustaining town with a school and a hospital and a water facility and an electrical facility. And they were in the process of building the electrical and water facilities when it kind of financially went south. So it never came to fruition. No movie stars ever came here, no films were ever made there, but you can still drive down Lon Chaney Boulevard or D.W. Griffith Lane or Mary Pickford Street.
While there weren't too many major studios still situated in Florida, there was a lot of location shooting that happened in Florida because of the natural beauty here, particularly between World War I and World War II, before there was too much development in Florida. That really began to take off after World War II. But certainly during that period, and on after World War II, there was a lot of location shooting in Florida.
Once the studios begin to pull together, become huge conglomerates, because they can invest in sound and because they do buy up their own distribution companies, it becomes harder to be a little guy operating in Hollywood. And there's some resistance to that in the late 20s and early 30s. And out of that resistance, people start looking elsewhere to build a studio in another part of the country. And Aubrey Kennedy was one of those. I think he felt like he had been pushed out of the industry that he was there in on it from the beginning. And so he thinks that St. Pete would be a good location for a movie studio. And he begins to kind of wine and dine and court the locals and the state officials to try to make that happen. And it was going to occur on Weeden Island. And at first I think there was some sort of nightclub that they used as a temporary studio, and then they were going to build a huge state-of-the-art facility. And of all of the efforts to bring back some big-scale production to Florida, I feel like that one had the best chance because of Kennedy's experience in the film industry. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
The Yearling is Florida writer Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings' most popular novel. It tells the story of a young boy and his pet deer and the sacrifice he must make for the good of his family. The book won the Pulitzer Prize in 1939, and soon after, the first effort was made to turn the book into a film.
There was a version of The Yearling that was filmed almost immediately after the Pulitzer Prize. It started filming in 1940. Immediately, they sold, after it was published and it was successful, Marjorie sold the rights to MGM to make the movie. So they started making the movie, and Spencer Tracy was going to be starring as Penny Baxter, the protagonist of the novel, or the father of the protagonist, if you will. And Marjorie was, riding the success and was looking forward to the movie being made, and actually consulted with it. However, the Spencer Tracy and the other actors were somewhat dismayed by the horrible heat of Florida and the humidity and the mosquitoes. Spencer Tracy was purported to have thrown his hat down in disgust and gone on an alcoholic bender in Ocala, and literally drunkenly hailing a cab and saying, "Drive me to Chicago, I'm out of here."
With Spencer Tracy abandoning the project and the U.S. about to enter World War II, MGM decided to shelve the Yearling film, at least temporarily.
They picked up again after World War II with a new cast, Gregory Peck playing Penny Baxter and Jane Wyman playing Ma Baxter, and a new boy actor named Claude Jarman Jr. from Tennessee, who had no acting experience whatsoever, He played the boy Jody Baxter, and his relationship with the deer, the tenderness that he showed with the animals, and with the rapport that he had, especially with his father in the movie, it was a success. The movie was fantastic. It came out after the war, when there was a sort of a nostalgic return to the old ways. And this was a perfect movie for that, to display that we're back to the way things were, America fooling herself that it's all fine now, and the women are back in the domestic sphere, etc. So it was an immensely successful film.
That's right. You can go now. Ain't nobody got any use for you around here anymore. Go on, you hear me? You go. There ain't nothing more I can do to save you. Go on. You gotta get killed, you say, around here. Get out of boy, I can shoot you. And don't you never come back. Don't you never.
The planned community of Seaside, Florida provides the perfect backdrop for the satirical film The Truman Show, where Jim Carrey is the only person who doesn't realize that his life is a reality TV show. What better place to shoot scenes for the drama Apollo 13 than the Kennedy Space Center, where much of the real-life action depicted in the film took place? The crystal clear waters of Silver Springs and Wakulla Springs served as the underwater habitat for the gill man in the classic horror film Creature from the Black Lagoon.
We had a director who, nice man, but he couldn't swim. So he was in an inner tube on the surface looking down at what we were doing. So the cameraman, Scotty Welburn, kind of took over directing underwater. And so he said, well, let's swim downriver with Ginger and get the scene of following her. And so I swam with her, and vision was the poorest thing in the suit. The eye sat about an inch away from my eye, and I didn't use a face mask or a goggle because if they filled with water, I couldn't get rid of the water. So I went with a naked eye. So it was a blurred vision looking through a keyhole. So the only way I could see her was when I swam upside down. So I had to swim upside down underneath her in order to follow her down the river.
Browning would reprise his underwater role for the two Creature from the Black Lagoon sequels, the only actor to portray the gill man in all three films. After the Creature series of films, Browning became the stuntman and underwater director for the TV show Sea Hunt, working with producer Ivan Tors at his Miami studio. After the success of Sea Hunt, Browning and co-writer Jack Cowden took the story of a very intelligent dolphin named Flipper to Ivan Tors.
So I got the bright idea that if I could say a producer in Hollywood is considering it as a movie, maybe they'll publish the book. So I called Ivan and I said, Ivan, will you do me a favor? I said, I'd like to get my book published about a boy and a dolphin. And would you say you're considering it as a movie? He said, yeah, well, okay. And he said, but send me a copy. So I did. I mailed him a copy. And I called the book company and I said, hey, the producer in Hollywood wants to make this into a movie. Can we get the book going? And they talked and hemmed and hawed, and I never heard back from them. But I did hear from Ivan. Ivan said, I didn't read your book. He said, but my wife did, and she loved it, so she made me read it. I love it. He said, let's make a movie. So he got the money from MGM, and we made the first feature and then 4 years of television.
As the Tors Film Studio was having great success in Miami in the 1960s, another production facility called Shamrock Studios was active in Winter Park, Florida.
The offices in the front of the building seem to be sort of executive management style offices. This is a building that I'm not sure an architect would be proud of. It looks like it just sort of keeps going like the Energizer Bunny. I mean, this is 16,000 square feet under roof, which is hard to believe. And when you see the warehouse, it was really a soundstage. And again, the bathrooms are not small bathrooms. They were large because they were showers and dressing rooms.
We were here with a picture called Johnny Tiger, which Universal released in '66, but we shot it in '64, and we did our interiors in here. We had an exterior location in Longwood at the old hotel, and these were the hotel room interiors for the scenes that took place there. And then we had a bedroom scene for the house that was out on our location at Wekiva Springs, which is just a false front. So we were here about 3 days, and it was a nice studio. It worked very well. Robert Taylor, Chad Everett, and Brenda Scott were the 3 stars involved with the shots here.
In addition to owning the building that formerly housed Shamrock Studios, Bruce O'Donoghue has another tie to the film industry in Florida, appearing in the 1989 Ron Howard film Parenthood.
I was president of the College Park Little League. They needed extras for the Little League scenes, and Coach Miller for the city of Orlando called me and then said, heads up, you're going to get a phone call from these folks. And so we ended up getting 36 boys from the College Park Little League. And actually, I was not going to be in the film, but I was going to be there to make sure everybody was safe. And Robert Stewart, city commissioner today, was supposed to be the base umpire for us, and he was an umpire for the league. And Robert called me up one day right before the shooting. He says, I can't be there. And so I called the casting director. I said, I'm short somebody. And she said, well, why don't you do it? I said, all right, I guess so. So I just did my little job out there. I was with him anyway. And then the last day, Ron Howard came up and said, hey, sign this. We want you to make a declarative in the film about Steve Martin's son catching the winning ball and winning the game. And okay. So, and lo and behold, it made it to the final cut. So I was an official actor, and it was a great, fun time in 1989. It was the very exciting all around Orlando for all the different places that were being used and people, being in the film.
He's out of there!
In 1987, both Disney and Universal announced that they would be building film production studios in Central Florida in addition to movie-based theme parks. The name Hollywood East was being used to describe what Orlando would become.
And it's odd that it turned out that way because Florida truly was in a very enviable position to be Hollywood East. And it's still, to me, a little disconcerting that it played out the way it did. New York and Florida during the 1970s and 1980s were the second busiest locations for film shot outside of California. I mean, they were neck and neck. They were truly rivals, for that honor of second place, and that was significant. The smart money would have been on Florida because of the year-round weather being so favorable for film shoots, because of an infrastructure that supported such endeavor, because of an inexpensive labor force.
For decades, Florida was very active in the film industry, behind only California and New York. In more recent years, cuts in government incentives have sent some filmmakers away from Florida to Georgia, South Carolina, and elsewhere. You've been watching Florida Frontiers, presented by the Florida Historical Society. Visit us anytime on the web at myfloridahistory.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ben Brotemarkle. The Florida Historical Society presents Florida Frontiers is made possible in part by the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund and by
Florida's Space Coast Office of Tourism, representing destinations from Titusville to Cocoa Beach to Melbourne Beach. The Space Coast has a diverse 72 miles of beach, including surf towns and sea turtle nests. We have inspiring attractions, including the Kennedy Space Center, Brevard Museum of History and Natural Science, and the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. More information is available at www.visitspacecoast.com.
and by the Department of State Division of Cultural Affairs, the Florida Council of Arts and Culture, and the state of Florida. Florida history and culture from the Ice Age to the Space Age is on display at the Brevard Museum of History and Natural Science, located at 2201 Michigan Avenue in Cocoa. The museum has nature trails through 20 acres of 3 Florida ecosystems. The People of Windover exhibition features information about Florida's prehistoric past and actual artifacts used between 7,000 and 8,000 years ago. More information at brevardmuseum.org. The Florida Historical Society Press publishes books on a variety of topics relating to our state's diverse history and culture. FHS Press titles include Life and Death at Windover, excavations of a 7,000-year-old pond cemetery, The Voyages of Ponce de Leon, scholarly perspectives, Hollow Victory, a novel of the Second Seminole War, Stetson Kennedy's Palmetto Country, and Walk in Lawton. More information at fhspress.org.